Now we're going on Spreaker.
Hey, Spreaker!
Here we are, live on the air.
We are in Stratfordville. What do you think? Can you live? Can you spell?
Well, Spreaker, how you doing? It's the afternoon matinee with Eminem. It's the Eminem show.
Yeah, Mike and the Moron. We're here together. Yeah.
It's Mike and Mike, so yeah, it was supposed to be like Eminem show. Fuck everything.
I love it!
Master's in there. Okay, it looks like we got somebody in here. He must be able to hear us. Yeah.
More on the mountain, raising the king.
This might fuck things up right there. I just lost something. Okay, that must be done. It's coming back. I'm gonna close this. I'm
So did Debbie Does Dallas, man. Debbie Does Daily. No, Daily Dallas?
Debbie did do Dallas.
Not Daily.
And don't make fun of her. She's gonna help me with my fucking website.
Ah, sorry, Debbie.
All right, after we're done with the website, then we'll make fun with it. Aw, Dennis left.
Dennis, where the fuck did you go? Just cutting your hair?
There is monsters.
Monsters all over.
There is monsters.
They're all on the roof, man. They're trying to get in. There's no way in.
Okay, here we
13
go.
years of age, he wrote a letter that was based on the prophetic information Svath had given him at that time. He, with the help of Father Zimmerman, made 3,000 copies and disseminated them.
Bitch, are you a bitch? Only bitches can chew their nails, man.
Darren's there. Holy shit. Darren, are you there? What the fuck? How come I can't hear nothing in here?
Because you unplugged yourself.
Darren's there. Holy shit. Well, oh, maybe I did. What the fuck? Are you serious? I didn't unplug myself. Well,
Yeah, you fucked up something.
I don't know, maybe it's this.
Hey, Darren,
maybe
are you
that's
there?
it.
Don't go.
I'm
nowhere.
here. Okay, I got the wrong fucking. Okay, I moved this around. That's right. So you're in stereo now.
Can't help it, Darren. Little bit.
You push the button.
Stupid.
Yeah. You know what? Kurt told me to push this little button, and I fucked up because he told me the wrong button. That shows you what kind of pea brain he's got.
He don't even have a brain, man.
And you know what?
Who's there?
It's my friend Mike, my buddy that I live with
Psycho
here.
Michael, I live
Psycho
with
Michael.
the Wolfman. And you know what? He's as stupid as you think he is. Yeah.
It's Psycho Michael. Psycho Michael
Oh, yeah, I
Motorcycle.
Yeah.
I like that.
These were some of the things.
Okay. Psycho Michael. Did you hear that when I was playing there?
No, I just got on here. I'm on break here at work.
What did you break?
All sorts of stuff.
Oh my God. Are you going to get in trouble for that?
I hope so.
Don't think
I
so.
hope he is spanking, man.
You know,
I hope they take a fucking what is a hickory stick?
Jesus.
Fucking whips your fucking
jobs
ass.
are the most important thing in the world. If you're late one day, they fire you. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's why Wolfman don't even work.
Well, I'm not late ever.
I know. That's why you're not late. I know. Not like other people. Uh-oh. You did break something, didn't you? I heard it.
Beneath the Great Pyramid where he was shown a number of very interesting things pertaining
I heard you break something.
to a negative
I haven't called in sick in 2 years.
based here
Oh, no. Why?
1978 that were the
Oh, boy. So what I'm listening
I haven't
to,
been sick.
and some other mysteries.
you haven't been sick. Okay, so obviously listening to me has not caused you to have any kind of possible side effects mentally?
Yeah, listening
Well,
can make
mental
anybody fucking
sickness is
mental,
different.
man. I know, because I'm already gone past that fucking
See,
point.
he hasn't learned radio etiquette
I'm
yet.
retarded, yeah!
Darren, we're going to have to electrocute him. He has not learned radio etiquette.
Fuck you too, mama, and ride on your
Fuck you,
horse.
I'm blowing you up, Mike. I just blew him up. That's okay, he's blown up. So we're live on Spreaker and everything. I just decided to do this. I was listening to this Billy Meier is telling the truth thing. Evidence suppressed. And I was listening to Linda Moulton Howe telling about these frequencies that they're catching in space. Basically saying that she's what she's saying is these, and she's talking to scientists, is that there is some transportation going on between our galaxy and another galaxy. And what they're seeing is this flash of energy bursts, and they're in the range of the radio frequencies. And the scientists are saying
And
that
then
that could be a...
They change like an SOS in frequencies. They change them.
Yeah.
That's why they wonder why, because they're changing so rapidly that it's like a signal.
Well, they're thinking it may be a transportation, like some kind of a transporter, like in Star Trek, basically. Interstellar.
She's supposed to have some important show on with George tonight.
Yeah, I know. And it has to do with this. And yeah, there's something.
Maybe that's what
she
she's
says.
talking
There's
about.
something coming to Earth, and it's coming through a transportation device, some kind of transportation device. It's coming back and forth to Earth from this other small dwarf galaxy. It's fucked.
There's a UFO hidden behind the comet.
Oh, that's what she's talking about. Okay.
No, that's a joke.
Okay.
Remember that?
Oh yeah, that's right. It was actually just a dildo.
No, those people in the Nikes, they all killed themselves because they were going to go aboard the mothership.
Wow. I don't even know these people. And shout out to who is this?
Chase.
Oh wow, man! He works with Chase
Kloetsky.
Looks like he works with Josh Gates. What? She? Or he? Or is that Josh's real name? Wow. Sensible Sam. We're getting some people on Twitter following us, man. We're getting some attention here. David Black. It's some kind of a... Ooh, cool. Actor, director, musician, artist, best known for being in horror rock band Darkness Visible. That's pretty cool. So this is some kind of a dark warlock dude. That sounds like a future guest. We need a Satanist. Are you up?
I knew Satan when I was a little boy, and you know what? I told him to go to hell because he didn't tell me nothing I didn't already know.
I am Satan. I am Satan. I am Satan.
We need a devil rap.
I know, but you can't hear me when I turn my voice, can you?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Mike and I can
Later.
double rap together. We'll both put it. I'll put it on both. Here we go.
Devil rap tonight. We are just going to eat your soul. You are the supper on the table. In the laboratory, we will slice your brain open and find your soul and eat it. I believe the soul is your pituitary gland. Fry it up and eat it. Fry it up and eat it. pituitary glands. Pituitary glands are the coolest, yummy snack food. Pituitary glands are the coolest, yummy snacky food. When you chop off the fingers, you can fry them up to make some finger food for me and you. Finger foods, chop up fingers from humans. Eat them up, fry it up, eat it up, fry it up, eat it up. Cookies! I can make cookies from your pituitary gland. Fry it up, eat it up. Cookies!
There you go. That is crazy stuff, man. Yeah, pituitary glands are nutritious, and they're just like eating a pituitary gland from a monkey, but humans' ones are tastier.
I don't have mine.
Eat a nutritious monkey today, and you will keep the doctor away. You don't have a pituitary gland?
Nope, they took it out.
Why?
I was hungry.
Damn. The doctor was hungry. He brought you to the laboratory. I get it. Well, okay, there's lots of monkeys we can use to try to transfuse one back into your head. So you want to hear some of this? This is the Billy Meier proof thing, and then we can discuss it.
Yeah, play it. I got to get back to work here. I'll listen.
Okay, listen for a while, and then when you come back, we'll discuss this.
Asket looked something like this, although her hair was rather dark and not, as it might appear here, blonde. Meier did all sorts of stuff as a young fellow, including joining and fleeing from the French Foreign Legion. He traveled, he actually hiked around these 43 countries, covered 155,000 miles by foot, met many of the world leaders. He was encouraged to study the major religions of the world, having been raised in a small religious village in Switzerland, and as the mission, as you'll see, unfolds for him in his life to have a very much broader view of the realities behind all religions, he was encouraged to join as many as he could, study them, keep going from one to another, and apparently he did. That name Billy was given to him by a woman who observed him traveling around. You'll see in some photos in a minute probably why he took that name. He's 20 years old, typing in Switzerland. And he's in Morocco. He's on the road somewhere. He's in Paris. He's in the middle here. Oh, maybe I've got the ability to use this thing. Let's see. He's, I think, right there. He's with some Jordanian citizens. Fighters here, carrying his sidearm and a knife, the Swiss badge on his apparel there. Here he is in King Hussein's palace, outside with the guards. Among the people that he met, King Hussein of Jordan, Farouk, Nasser, Ayub Khan, Haile Selassie. He met Franco, Tito, Nehru. He met Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, Radhakrishnan. He met Saddam Hussein. Pardon me. Those photos were not taken by him. Those were just the ones that were taken about the time when those people were about the age that he was meeting them. In 1963, he allegedly co-discovers a document in an abandoned tomb near Jerusalem. Documents written in Aramaic. We'll talk more about that later. In 64, he does his first photographs of UFOs. Most people don't know that that's when his first photographs were taken, back in India. And in 1965, as he had been told 10 years before, his left arm is virtually ripped off his body in a truck bus accident. Here he is This is a prince from Poland. This man is Isa Rashid, who is the co-discoverer of what has become to be known as the Talmud of Emmanuel, spelled with a J. Pakistan, as I said, the name Billy was given to him by someone who observed him since he liked to dress in kind of American Western garb, cowboy hat, and with his gun at his side and all that. He became Billy. Here he's not exactly looking like Billy the Kid, traveling with a monkey that was called Emperor. This is among the first photographs taken in India, with 8 of Ascat's ships appearing as light formations in the sky. You can see there's someone standing down here. This is above the ashram, the Ashoka ashram in Maroli. Here you can see a much more distinct UFO. That is Ascat's ship itself. And yet one more photograph of it. So for those people that claim that Meier was taking photographs of models, he's out in the middle of nowhere in India in 1964, and he's taking photographs of something that's rather compelling. His story is written about. In the New Delhi Statesman that year. He's covered for the first time in the press. All right. Here you can see, we just give a little bit of detail about his daughter Gilgamesha being born in Pakistan, travels with the family, and then the returning to Switzerland. So, no more cowboy garb, minus an arm, with a pregnant wife and a child. And now, with 3 children, living in Switzerland a couple years before the major contacts will allegedly begin. Right around 1975. Now, this little update, there's a retired UN diplomat. She was one of the children at the ashram. She and her sister were I think, the grandchildren of the head of the ashram. And they were among those people who witnessed the ships. They had met Meier there. And they saw Meier with the extraterrestrial woman. What isn't widely known, this woman came forward about 5-6 years ago and made a presentation. Press conference was all recorded. She had retired from her life as a UN diplomat. She was married and never had come forward before publicly. She was actually contacted by the same woman before she had met Meier. And, excuse me, she had been prepared in effect for that meeting with Billy by this woman who would come into her room at night, she said, and she would stroke her hair, and she would notice that when she woke up in the morning, even though she didn't think she had spoken with this woman or been spoken to by her, she had new knowledge that enabled her to, for instance, be able to understand and know people very quickly, and areas of intuition that she thought were much accelerated in their development that she had not expected. There were other things that she'd spoken about in terms of her own contact with this woman. But she came forward basically to attest to the fact that this man was being truthful. He indeed had these experiences because she was there and witnessed them. And now she went after that and to Switzerland and met with Meier, who you see in the lower left as a man of about 66 or 7 of that. Point. This is the period of time in which the so-called official contacts are beginning, and that means information was intended, as well as evidence, to be made publicly available, to start to document this work and to put into the public arena the actual essence, the purpose of the contacts that started with Meier in 1942.
This is only a test. 1, 2, test.
So, nice pastoral, beautiful place. Here he is in 75 shading. Sanyaze is the name by which he knows the first woman who contacts him in January of 1975. She then meets her father, whose name is Ptah, same as we kind of know from the ancient Egyptian god. And he is allegedly the leader of the Pleiadian race. And Quetzal was what was called the base commander for Earth when they had their base in the Alps. there were several bases on the planet, the primary one being in the Alps, and that has been abandoned and closed up. Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens, some of you people probably know about Wendell. He, along with Lee and Britt Elders, were the primary trio of the research team. They were joined by Tom Welch, Jim Delatoso. There were people that played various roles in examining the physical evidence. This case took about 6 years of their time in investigation and an immense amount of their own money for their being on site in Switzerland for off and on, back and forth. There were a lot of things that happened in that investigation that I'm not going to cover that had to do with their own experiences, with the monitoring by the CIA that's been going on for 30 years of the Meier case, and every time they got on a plane. And the two people, Lee and Britt Elders, are high-level private investigators and security consultants for Fortune 500 companies, for banks, and even for governmental institutions. And they were all savvy enough to know that they did not want to book their airline when they were going back and forth, so they would just go to the airport and get on.
We're gonna actually do a bone-chilling scream here, live. Okay, Mike's gonna do a bone-chilling scream that I can capture later as a clip. Okay, this is the most bone-chilling scream on earth. Okay, here we go. Ooh, yeah, fuck, man, that has hurt my ears. Thank you.
Evidence for those of you that are familiar or aren't. This is a classic shot, the kind of sun glinting off the ship here. Just so you know, the investigators did make models, brought them to Switzerland, hung them wherever they were.
That sounded like a banshee from hell.
We could set up a comparable shot for the purposes of photographic examination. Now, if you look at these, you're going to notice that compared to most so-called UFO cases, these are rather clear, not lights in the sky.
That's because he doesn't smoke, ladies and gentlemen.
Meier oftentimes set up an object in the foreground. He was advised to do that so that there'd be some depth here and people could have a little bit more of a challenge to their belief that somebody simply had a fishing pole and was holding the thing up. So now you have three of these. Now understand, Meier indeed is a one-armed man, and this investigation that went on for 6 years and then some could never discover collaborators, model makers, special effects people, even finances that could have been employed by Meier for such work. And if you've been to this part of Switzerland, you know it's a wide open spaces and rugged hills and mountains, and the people there, his neighbors, observe this man fairly carefully. They were interviewed by the investigators, and they also
goddamn rock and roll
balloons. What are you talking about? He's a one-armed guy on a moped with a tripod in his back and his lunch in his knapsack. So
yeah, let's go to California.
Now,
we're gonna ride away. We're gonna ride fucking blows, motherfucker. That's where we're gonna ride. When we get to California.
In California. Fuck everything. We're gonna go with Alice Cooper. We're all a bunch of fucking clones anyway.
I'm your doctor. He's on the line. Take incubation another day. I'm all alone, so are we all. We're all clones, all are one and one are all are one and one are all. We destroy the government, we're destroying time. No more problems on the way. I'm through, doctor. We don't need your kind. The other ones, ugly ones, stupid boys, wrong ones. I'm all alone, so are we all. We're all clones, all are one and one are all are one and one are all. 6 is having problems, adjusting to its clone status. All day long we hear him crying so loud. I just wanna be myself. I just wanna be myself. I just wanna be myself. Be myself. Be myself.
looking a fucking goddamn like to be dead, you know. I don't care very much, you know.
We destroy the government. Destroy time. No more problems on the way.
Most people die from cigarette-related cancer, and he thinks he's brainwashing me while he's already brainwashed. Yeah.
Yeah, you're brainwashed. No, me. I'm brainwashed. Fuck you. I'm brainwashed.
Yeah, well, we're gonna take you down on the scrubbing board. We're gonna watch that brain, so it's got a train, and you can go choo 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 choo.
Whatever we want.
We're gonna take you down on the scrubbing board. We're gonna watch that brain, so it's got a train, and you can go choo 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 choo.
But that's when you lose your train of thought, folks.
Oh, fuck you guys. Yeah. Hey, if I want my comeback, I'd smack you in the back of the fucking head, bitch.
Lose your train of thought, folks.
Oh, fuck you guys. Yeah. Hey, if I want my comeback, I'd smack you in the back of the fucking head, bitch.
She came from Greece. She had a thirst for knowledge.
Well,
She
yes,
studied
we like all
sculpture
kinds
at
of
St.
very
Martin's
disruptive
College.
things,
That's
you
where
know.
I caught her eye. She told me that her dad was loaded. I said, in that case, I'll have a rum and Coca-Cola. She said, fine. And in 30 seconds time, she said, I want to live like common people. I want to do whatever common people do. I want to sleep with common people. I want to sleep with common people like you. Well, what else could I do? I said, I'll see what I can do. I took her to a supermarket. I don't know why, but I had to start it somewhere. So it started there. I said, pretend you've got no money. She just laughed and said, oh, you're so funny. I said, yeah? Well, I can't see anyone else smiling in here. Are you sure? You want to live like common people? You want to see whatever common people see? You want to sleep with common people? You want to sleep with common people like me? But she didn't understand.
She just smiled and held my hand. Went to Plaza Barber Shop, cut your hair and get a job. Smoke some fags and play some pool. Pretend you never went to school, but still you'll never get it right. When you're lying in bed at night, watching roaches climb the wall. If you called your dad, he could stop it all here.
You'll never live like common people. You'll never do whatever common people do. You'll never fail like common people. You'll never watch your life slide out of you and dance and drink and screw because there's nothing else to do. Sing along with the common people. Sing along. It might just get you through. Laugh along, even though they're laughing at you and the stupid things that you do because you think that poor is cool.
Like a dog lying in a corner, they'll bite you and never warn you. Look out.
They'll tear your insides out because everybody hates a tourist.
Everybody hates a tourist, especially one who thinks it's all such a lie.
Yeah, and the chip stains grease will come out in the back.
You will never understand how it feels to live your life with no meaning or control, and with nowhere left to go.
You're amazed they exist, and they burn so bright while you can only wonder,
We're to fly to your hair and get a job. Smoke some fags and play some pool. Pretend you never went to school. But still you'll never get it right. Cause when you laid in bed at night, watching roaches climb the wall, you called your dad. He could stop it all, yeah. You'll never live like common people. You'll never do what common people do. You'll never fail like common people. You'll never watch your life slide out of you and dance and drink and screw. Because there's nothing else to do.
They can have fun, drink, and stay off the road, and to keep them away from cops and everything, so they can just get drunk and have fun.
Hey, Wolfman, can I mention something before when it comes in and plays?
Yeah.
I want to know what everybody's going to think about it when even police officers get to have smoke marijuana for medical purposes when they're driving on the roads. I don't know if anybody's thought about that one in the government, but the thing is, if they can do that, what is wrong with someone that's medicating themselves only to be able to function in a day? If you are functioning, it is better to function while driving than not functioning while driving. So if you need to take your medication to function, then I think you should take your medication. So if a police officer suffers from traumatic post-stress disorder, from finding a murdered body, then I think he should be able to smoke marijuana and drive.
And actually drive for us.
Yes.
I think we should get cops that are fucked in the head to be able to drive people like us around and do something real for society instead of what they've been doing that was bad. They've been doing something bad all their lives. Let them do something good for a change and drive us around. Take
Drive us around.
So we can go get drunk and not get in trouble anymore from you bastards.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. I'm going to get into this. When you pick up a friend that's at a party and they're drunk.
Yeah, if it's a cop. What if it's a cop? Because I know people that are cops at a party that are drunk and they ask you to pick them up.
So you go pick them up and you give them a ride home and you get pulled over by a cop. And you get busted because they have half a can of beer in their hand?
And yeah, especially if they're a cop. That's got the
They get away with it because, buddy, oh, yeah, I'm officer too, here's my badge. Oh, okay, you have a wonderful night, don't bother. Blah, blah, blah. Kiss my ass, it's bullshit. No.
I don't like the getting treated differently stuff. If you're a cop, you should respect that you have to abide by the same fucking goddamn rules that you're pushing on us.
And not
otherwise, you're a hypocrite. And you know what's going to happen to you? Hypocrites go straight to hell.
And that's one thing that's true. Hypocrites do go to hell, and people that think that they're in a higher place because they're either a police officer, OPP, whatever, and they get away with doing crimes against the civilians because they are less likely to be able to do something against them because they're protected. Those people will one day pay, and like what man said, they go to hell.
I wouldn't rant about this, but I've seen cops fucking take my pot away and say thank you. I'm not busting you, but I'm going to smoke it later, and thanks a lot.
Yeah, we had 2 beers out of a case, and they took the whole case.
This is the way it was before. They take the case of beer and they don't dump it or nothing. They put it in their trunk,
and then they take it to a party.
You boys just go home. Don't worry about it. You're lucky we didn't bust you. And then they drive away with your fucking beer.
And then they go to a party that you bump into them later, and they're smoking your dope and drinking your beer.
Yeah, exactly. The same guys that are cops are there at the party.
It's happened.
I wouldn't even say it. It's fucking bullshit, man. If you're going to be a cop, do it right, man. Or don't be a cop. Or else you're just being one of them pigs, what people call a pig. There's a difference between a cop and a pig.
Yeah, there was a pig. I've dealt with pigs from size bowling lane before. They're pigs.
I know a lot of good
Are
cops.
pigs.
But I know a lot of good cops, but I don't know a lot of good pigs.
That's true. You know what? This pig actually said, my girlfriend was working and she said to me, what would you think if a police officer said to you, I'll give you a tip if you give me a blowjob? I said, well, that fucking cop is a pig. And he is.
Well, I've heard girls tell me, and this is getting pretty graphic, folks, and I hope your kids aren't listening.
No kids should be listening.
Get your kids away.
This is explicit.
Explicit show, and it is listed as an explicit show, so definitely an adult, and please let no more kids listen from here on.
Yeah.
Because this is getting really explicit here. Now, I have actually heard women tell me that they got off on driving charges by sucking cocks.
And I've also heard of women
From
being
police,
raped
yeah.
by the entire fucking fire station. And that's happened, and that's happened, and that's happened.
And all this stuff happened before. So this is the way our generation... I gotta say, I'm 50 years old, right? So marijuana mama, she's in her 40s. So that,
46.
but it's still the same generation that we went back when we were teenagers. This is what was going on. So this is the way we were raised. This is what we expect to be treated, right? So you get what you give, right? So this is what they gave us. So this is what we, what do they want from our fucking generation? And now all they can do is keep busting us for drinking and driving after they let us get away with it. It was a trap, and it's just a trap to punish us for no fucking reason, but to milk us dry like cattle. This was designed by somebody very smart in politics.
To drain us.
Just to drain the public like cattle. This is what your politicians... They just conspire with each other and see who can do it the best, who can milk the shit out of the fucking people.
And by the way, if you have an elderly person in your family and they are in a hospital because of psychiatric problems, go and check on them. And if they seem worse to you than the last time, it's because of the medication they're on. I have a friend who actually got his mom back after 5 years of being in the hospital. He demanded them take her off everything, and now he's got her back. Now that's 5 years that he did not have of his mom. She didn't even remember who he was. She thought he was a friend. So if you have a family member like that, help them.
Way off topic from what I was saying, so I'm blown away and I don't even know what you're talking about anymore.
No, I just I got to thinking about some of these people that are in the hospital, like psychiatric hospital, and they don't see people because everybody thinks they're crazy. Everybody's scared of them. And I would be one of those people. And everybody knows me. If you're listening and you know me,
people are scared of somebody that's crazy, that's because they are actually probably really crazy, and the person they're scared of is probably more like about me. I was going to say, everybody needs to know one thing about me. I'm a chaotic person. I do not like laws. Laws are ridiculous to me. I believe in chaos and anarchy. And I'm fucking serious. I cannot stand laws at all.
There's laws made every day, all day long. Did you know that?
It's such a bullshit fucking piece of crap aristocracy. I still believe, and I'm not even joking, that everyone should just be allowed to wear a gun on themselves and do away with everything. We just get a town sheriff like the old days.
That's how it should be. Because then you have sheriff.
You have some simple fucking laws. Some simple rules. Make it easy for people. This is getting way out of hand.
First there was 10 commandments. Now there's 2 billion laws that everybody's supposed to know exactly word for word what the fuck they are. How are we supposed to know? Do we have all the paperwork in front of us every day?
Yeah, when they change the laws, do they tell you about it? Do they give everybody a fucking mail? Say, oh yeah, this is the new law. No, they don't, because every fucking law they made is to trap you and get more of your fucking money, because they can drag you to court and drag you all over the place in front of the community and make you feel like an idiot.
Can I talk about...
all your fucking neighbors gone through the same thing. All you people need to do is stick together, talk to each other, and stand up for each other. And everybody go together. Everybody that's had that... Everybody fucking go to court. Make the court so full of fucking people that they can't even deal with it. Clutter those fucking courts right up. Stand up for your neighbor. Everybody in the community, go to court with your neighbor. Everybody go. Everybody in the fucking God. Everybody go. If it's bullshit. Everybody go. And every fucking time, stand up for that person. Shoot everything else down and fucking shut this shit down one piece at a time. Because they will not be able to stand up to our numbers. And that's the only way we can do it.
Shit show is what it is. You've caused a shit show.
It's an absolute shit show. We need a solution. So there's one. And you got me on your show. And this is what I am. I'm a fucking goddamn community activist. And this is what I'm telling everyone. You got to stand up for your neighbor. That's what the Wolfman's all about. We can't take them down by ourselves. And they're slaughtering us. They got fucking military shit now. Like, the only way we can do this is like Gandhi, the peaceful demonstrations. And one way to do it that I thought of, which will work, is to stand up for all your neighbors. If anybody you hear that they're going to court for something, and if it's a bullshit charge, get everybody you know that's a friend or anyone, that everyone, fucking go. So that clutter up their fucking court so heavy with people that they won't even be able to fit people in the court anymore. And they're going to have to stop doing it.
Yeah.
It will shut them down.
That is exactly what they would have to do.
It will. It will shut them down.
They wouldn't even
all you need is probably 20 people to come with you. And if everybody had 20 people with them, it'll shut their courts down.
You're absolutely right.
I'm a genius.
Yeah.
For thinking of this. I know I am. Because I know it'll work.
What?
I'm a Libra, right? So I see every fucking angle of everything. And I've already looked into this, and I cannot see any bad out of this. It is only a positive result, and it will work.
And it's peaceful.
And nobody can do anything about it.
And it's peaceful.
The government can't do a fucking thing about it. You just need to bring a lot, and it's hard to do, because nobody wants to go to court. But everybody's got to do it. This is the only way to do it.
Commercial time, everybody. Sorry.
Oh, I'm on a rant. I'm on something good here, though.
Yeah, we're gonna keep talking.
I am on something good. That is beautiful. Okay, you never heard this one yet?
I don't want to hear about it.
Cops are coming.
Marijuana on my back. How are you, Wolfman?
I'm not here yet.
You're not here yet. Well, I wanted you to keep talking about what you were, because I think it's really cool and really interesting.
Yeah, but it's not anything about to do with marijuana.
No, I have little skits about marijuana. I don't talk about marijuana in my whole show.
I wanted to hear that guy sing.
Yeah, get William Shatter. He's sitting on the couch over there
Yeah.
listening to
Hey,
the show
William,
over
wake
there.
up. Get over here.
Yeah, William Shatter, everybody. He plays guitar along with Mike sometimes. He's got a song for me, and I would love you to hear it.
How you doing?
Good, William.
William Shatter.
Thanks, William.
Shatter. My name's William.
Nice to meet you, William.
Yes, William Shatter. Shatter. Not William Shatner. Everybody thinks I'm William Shatner, but I'm not. I'm William Shatter.
You're great, William.
I just smoked some shatter.
You smoked your last
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah. I smoked shatter. Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah.
Could I have some of your last name?
You want to have some shatter? You want to try some shatter? Woohoo.
You sing the song and I'll try some shatter.
Look. How about the Sheba? No.
Yeah, chicken bugga.
Oh, you touched that thing on. Uh-oh. Oh, we used to have really bad guitar.
Very bad guitar. It's a really good guitar.
It's way out.
Must be postponed for a different time. This guy's very unprofessional.
Elvis, don't talk about William like that. Got a whole bunch of people here. Elvis and William and Abdul. He's hiding somewhere. Later on, Igor might come out. He's in the dungeon.
It's like somebody fucked with it, like really bad.
I wouldn't touch him.
Seriously, fuck.
Could have dropped.
Why would this middle key be fucked?
I don't know.
That's weird, man. Never is out. It's never out. It's really bad out. Fuck me. I don't think I can.
We're just tuning the guitar, folks.
Well, you're gonna have to talk or something.
Yeah,
See what's
and
going on
I
here, right?
am going to read this. I actually talked about this the other
I don't
night.
understand this one. That's fucked.
I actually talked about this song the other night, lyrics, and you're supposed to sing it really rough and off course. I'm just going to read it, and it's the way a lot of people feel, and it's called Pissed Off. I'm going to get pissed off over anything one day, over anything I say or do. One day I'll be pissed off at you, pissed off at me, pissed off at everybody. I'm going to get pissed off about anything and then pissed off about everything for the rest of the day. Pissed off at you, pissed off at me, the way I feel is pissed off, that's true. Just one of those days where everything pisses you off. Just a pathetic phase, huff and scoff. What a pissy day when everything goes wrong. January, February, March, or May. We all have those pissed off days. I love that addition, Eddie.
I'm pissed off too. But I'm not pissed off at you. Just pissed off at the world. Just pissed off at this fucking squirrel. He ate my marijuana plant. It's out of tune again.
That quick? I actually got a commercial for a friend of mine. She works locally on the Oneida Reserve, and she wanted me to make up a little commercial for her. This isn't available everywhere. This is available at in Ontario. It is free to seniors and free delivery to seniors. And you can contact them at www.motherearthfarm.ca. And they are located at 1095 River Road, Oneida Nation of the Thames. And I was supposed to do a commercial, and I didn't know that commercials weren't supposed to rhyme, but I think this is okay to start. Mother Earth Farm, hospitality and charm, a business with tradition and philosophy. Open your eyes to see, natural is always best. Our cows and chickens are free range. Our milk comes from in a glass jar. Because plastic seeps poison, danger. Our animals have choice of being indoor or out, providing a healthier, longer life. Go to Oneida and drive about. So much to see. Relax without strife. Beaded jewelry, sage and turtle shell purses, meat, milk and cheese. Great time to immerse and everyone ready to please. Moccasins and skins and so much more. Walk into the Wolf's Den store. So that's 1095 River Road, and it's on the Oneida Nation of the Thames. And it's called Mother Earth Farms. And you can buy your meat, your cheese, and your milk there. All natural. And that's the truth. Can you play a song now?
Okay. I don't have many.
I like that wind, Mark. It's cool in the background.
Sky is dark, it's misty grey. Devil has come out to play games you thought you'd never see. Look what brought you to your knees. 'Cause you fired up this cauldron, cauldron of glass, cauldron of bees.
Love it. Oh my god. I wish you would play more.
Screaming cup of peeled flies calls the mucus from the crying skies. Scattered eyeballs on the ground, would you kindly step upon them? 'Cause you fired up this cauldron, the cauldron of glass, the cauldron of bees. Freeze the insects, please. I such a insect's feet. Fall on your knees and bleed. Freeze the bees, please.
Do you want to do this one that we did together, dear?
Oh yeah, dig it.
Remember it, but I do. She's gone, he's gone. You gotta remember how you did it.
Well, I wasn't done.
I'm sorry.
Actually, you go ahead. I wasn't done, but go ahead.
No, I just trying to find that song we did together. He's gone, she's gone. Where you sing she's gone, and I sing he's gone. I don't know where it is anymore. We've done so many songs on your phone as recordings. I like using your phone as showing some of the stuff you've done.
Just present things that we know we can do right now.
Right this minute?
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't dream up shit and make me fucking work my ass off on the air.
Yeah, okay.
Present things that we have already practiced that I can actually do. You're really putting me on the spot. You can't do that. You were supposed to just interview me, by the way. You're not even doing that. Put me on the spot. You just play songs.
You played one song.
Do your radio show. You're supposed to keep it going.
I'm having an argument with you right now.
That's right. You should be just ignoring me and doing your fucking show. You're on the air.
Okay, actually, this is another. I'm going to read a couple of the ones that I wrote.
You're the host. You gotta tell
Can you be quiet, please, Wolfman?
Now you're doing it right.
Little twist. Dreams are goals with a little twist. Goals you tend to achieve. Great dreams give vision to a goal. Among the mist in mind, dreams bind you to achieve. The goals you have dreamt are meant to be. It's your destiny. In a vision, goals without desire may as well be fire. To eat and destroy and burn your dreams up in smoke. Then all of your intentions means nothing without learning. All it takes is to believe in yourself, your dreams, your goals, and your achievements, present and past. With your own little twist, believe that you will and achieve it. I ran out of breath.
Okay, I see. You wanted to do that with me.
I want to do anything with you.
Okay, I didn't get it. I thought, well, you could carry your show. Like, I didn't think I had to be here 100% of the time.
No, I didn't know what you were doing anyway.
Okay, I didn't expect to have to do that.
It's okay.
You got to keep your show going, girl. I thought you
I
had
know.
a topic.
You're my topic. We're supposed to be asking each other questions.
Interview me as if the crowd doesn't fucking know me from a hole in the wall.
Okay, Wolfman.
Because they don't.
Okay, Wolfman. Anybody that don't know Wolfman, he had a tobacco farm, and I wanted to ask him a question about your music. How long have you been playing music?
Okay. I've been playing music since I was 6 years old. Beat on anything I could find. Made my own instruments out of nothing. Drove my parents completely nuts.
Because of your drumming?
Conservatory of Music begged them. Told them that I was a child prodigy when they tested me. And they would not give me any percussion instruments, but they did let me learn guitar. So at least I learned some guitar, even though I didn't really want to.
So you know if percussion as in
I'm
drums?
in the chat room. Well, yeah, drums is my thing.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if percussion meant drums. Okay, would you be able to play
Percussion doesn't mean just drums. Okay, keyboards is also percussion. Okay.
I didn't know that. Thank you. I learned something.
You're not supposed to do that.
Keyboard is?
Yeah, it's percussion. It means you're hitting it. You're hitting the keys, so it's percussion.
It's beautiful. I didn't know that.
I can program a keyboard to play drums.
Could you play one beat and then play drums for me after I'm done after doing one of my songs?
Actually, I'll show you something cool.
I need to learn that thing.
You're not supposed to give away any secrets of mine and tell anybody the gadgets I use here on the air.
Okay.
It's my secrets. I have many secrets, and I don't want them all given away. So you're doing it. I told you don't do that. Or I'll shut this right down. Huh. Okay, it's working. Good. There we go. Oh man, so nobody's there. Cool, eh?
It's very cool.
And they're also like, this is it. I'm sorry, I'm having too much fun with that. I'm having way too much fun with that. Probably destroying everyone's ears.
Didn't destroy anybody's ears.
Let's try it with less fucking echo.
What models? What balloons? What are you talking about? He's a one-armed guy on a moped with a tripod in his bag and his lunch in his knapsack. So here's a little bit about it. Now, with the physical evidence, there's a fellow named Professor James Deardorff who became involved and interested in this. Not so much for the UFOs initially, but more because of this book, The Talmud of Emmanuel, that we'll touch upon later. But Deardorff did, as this says, submit these photographs to forestry experts. He said to them, never mind that thing. Is that a potted plant? Is it a model tree? I want to know. Now, also, remember, I had a presentation yesterday by Freddie Silva about the crop circles, and he talked about certain rings.
But nobody's in there.
Pay attention to these ships and some other things you'll see soon.
Yeah.
As, of course, the slide prior, a few slides prior, the tree was determined to be an authentic Abies alba, about 40 feet tall. This is about a 21-foot in diameter object. You can see an antenna here, and here you can again see this tiered kind of, there you go. See that? These rings going out. Underneath, you can see some of the ring on the bottom. Now, look at that. In the early 70s, mid-70s, these were showing up on Meier's land. Well, he wasn't surprised, but he was asking why. He asked the Playarn and the others that came, how come whenever you come, the grasses are swirled down like this, and we've noticed that they last through several seasons, and there's some unique activity with the insects, et cetera, and they said, well, the anti-gravitic force from beneath the ship causes the grasses to bend like that, and it won't kill them, and gosh, we start to see crop circles with, this type of thing. Of course, some people say the crop circles have had these kind of phenomenon for a long time, but it seemed to me for the longest time to be the same type of energy. And my early take on the crop circles was somebody is demonstrating to us what you can do with tremendous power that's creative and inspiring and doesn't destroy anything, a unique concept for humanity. Now, here's some other analysis that James Deardorff did. What we're looking at here is a triangular brace for a movie screen. Remember the old movie screens? You pull them up and they lock in place? Okay, that is one of the ships, and also you'll notice that it's in an angle. So it is at the top of the screen. So you could say, well, maybe somebody's suspending it, but it's a kind of odd angle to do it at. Now, you see the two arrows that Deardorff put in. There's the bottom of the ship, and there's the ship there, and that's in one frame. Now the ship is completely visible only at the bottom. Now, and we're having people are examining this, they're trying to get a definitive thing here. What happens here is part of the ship dips behind the hill. A clever little move on the part of the people inside it to say, it's not a model. We really are about a quarter of a mile away from the camera. All right. I think we're going to have, in a moment, here we go. Listen to this. This is the sound of the ship. And watch for two lights that are going to flash off the flange of the ship. See them there? All right, I took that film along with other ones to a special effects house. I'll get to this whole thing about the skeptics, and I'll tell you what they said about that. Here it is. 2001, I take the films and photos to this international skeptics group, and they tell me that it's all an easily duplicated hoax. And I said, okay, well, duplicate one of each, like that film segment out of 8 films that Meier had taken, and duplicate one of his photographs. James Randi, big skeptic, debunker. Meier case is a hoax. I said, oh, okay. So 3 years later, after I've been in touch with these people for months at CFI West and they've got nothing to show, they finally post 6 little pictures of a UFO model. And then I'm on a radio show that's called Coast to Coast with Art Bell, and we're kind of tweaking them a bit, and the guy calls up and he's complaining about the unfair treatment. And so we simply say, well, look, why don't you submit your photographs to the same photographic analysis that Meier's were for authentication? Because Meier's photographs, they took samples of his photos and they examined them very, very diligently and precisely. They determined they were not models, they're not special effects, they're objects about 21 feet in diameter, etc. Well, the guy declined. And that was the end of that challenge. And then after that, Randy withdrew his claim. What had happened was they had claimed that on that film clip that you just saw, that Meier had made a model and scratched the negative with a pin to get that effect. That was laughed at. Now, this light that you see here is the first appearance of a light ship that came one night to visit Meier's property. It apparently could change shapes from a ball of light to an elongated light to something more like, well, I guess you'd say a bathtub glowing in the air. He was told that this was a ship from the Andromeda Galaxy that had beings who were already in almost complete light form, a form that we reach after just a mere few billions years of evolution, so we don't get there quite yet. And they were a small race. They were very small, like light beings, and they didn't communicate with Meier. I guess they didn't want to have anything to do with that type of effort into the material world, but they came for a visit. Now, once the skeptics had to deal with the fact they couldn't duplicate those films and photos, then this thing, 3 different sizes of it, is photographed by Meier. And of course people say, well, it's got to be a garbage can lid with ball bearings. This one was calculated to be about 50 feet in diameter. And this one, up close, can you see, there's an interesting break here. You probably saw in one of the crop circle formations how there was a ring thing and there was a space, and then there's some interesting information about magnets and I'm not really all that wise about it, but I did notice that break in that area down there. Come on, you can do it. There it is. All right, watch this.
Ja, ist gut.
Meier set up a video camera, and he's there zooming in what would be close to 300 to 400 feet. It's not going to move. And he asks the guy in German at some point, would you move it around the tree? And the guy goes, and there's the full shot again. Skeptics go crazy. It's got to be a model stuck to a tree. Okay, make one.
Marcel Vogel, a senior scientist and chemist with IBM, had been carefully analyzing the tiny metal fragments Samyasa had given Billy. Metallurgical analysis had revealed the presence of the rare earth element thulium, but it was through the lens of a scanning electron microscope that Vogel made his most amazing discoveries.
I could not explain the type of material that I have and its discreteness by any known combination of materials. I could not put it together myself as a scientist. If I were to take these combinations and put it into a furnace, melt it, then pour it out and pull a little ingot, I would see all of these elements present there in any one area. But I don't. I see this discrete bits of material. Now, it can only happen by some form of a cold fusion process where you have the elements present and you fuse them together so they still maintain their identity, but they interpenetrate into one another. It's also a challenge because I showed it to one of my friends who was a metallurgist, and he shook his head. He said, I don't see how it can be put together. And that's where we are right now. And I think it's important that those of us who are in the scientific world sit down and do some serious study on these things instead of putting it off as figments of people's imagination.
Could I say this material is extraterrestrial?
It doesn't look like anything that we've made here. At this moment, I would feel very much inclined to accept what was given to me as being true.
I see.
I respect the people I've met so far, their integrity, their willingness to work. Mr. De La Tosa in his work on photography, and Mr. Stevens, the way he has done his best to give me specimens. We have all done this for one thing, to serve and to find out what truth.
Did you notice the different types of metal in the ship? There was like a copper-looking thing, a ring, and maybe another one. Okay. So the special effects company, I finally asked them, I said, could you duplicate these films? And they said, if we could, we would need CGI to do it. And they're the people that won the Academy Award for Independence Day. This is a kind of weird thing. I was just in Switzerland in May, and we had a crew up there from Discovery Channel, producers making a show for the Discovery Channel from London. And these, as it says here, there were these very unusual handprints and fingerprints in the hood of the car. This is, let's see, you see that car? That's either the same car or it's in about the same space as the car in question. This is where Meier lives, and there he is at 68 years of age now with a producer and a translator next to him. Here's the hood of the car, getting closer. Now, if you look here, you're going to see that there's, here's his hand, and there's a thumb, and you can count 6 fingerprints there. If you look over to this side, to the left, you see arm and hand prints. Now, when you get real close to this, you can see the papillary lines. You can see the swirls. And it's a really weird thing. It's been there for over a year in the Swiss, etched into a car hood through the summer, through the winter, through the summer, and going again into winter. And I asked if we could get some scientists to examine it, and they said, well, sure, just don't tear up the car, you know. Apparently, these people that came, they were little beings, about 1.25 meters tall, 6 fingers and a thumb, and their skin secretes a bit of corrosive acid for what our chemistry of our world is. If they touch our things, it kind of has an acidic effect on it. Meier said that he'd met them once, he didn't see them that night, and that he was told not to shake hands with them, but he couldn't resist wanting to touch with the finger, and he said it burned for several days afterwards. So it would be great to have it examined. I think that if you had an anatomist, somebody who understood the dynamics and torques, that which would distinguish a real handprint from simply the application of fake fingerprints, it would prove to be fairly interesting, don't you think? Get a picture there? Okay. A little closer. There are about 4 or 5 sets of these all over the hood inside of the car. And we have these posted on the website for free so you can get a better shot of them. So, when we talk about the physical evidence, certainly there's a tremendous enigma here, especially since it all increased in quality, variety, quantity, since he lost his arm. How do you account for that? That isn't the way people usually perform when they encounter a disability like that. He did decline several movie offers. We know that to be true. His answer to the whole thing about how do you make the films, you want to use special effects, he says, no, Just take my camera when the ship comes, I press the button. Not so hard to do. This is new. Well, it's newly found. It's actually happened a couple of years ago that the Swiss Military Airspace Safety Monitoring Unit recorded 236 UFO radar sightings right above his land in a 2-year period. Now, they set up special radar installations in the Zurich Highlands. Why'd they do that? Maybe they knew. And they did know, because they've also sent jets up to try to intercept the ships. So we're going to try to get through the UFO part of this, just to, establish as much about it as we can, and then we're going to have a few shots here where Meier is in a craft above the Earth photographing 2 other craft. He's above those 2 craft. A very tall tree, or he's really in one of the ships. These are some of the scientific experts who have looked at the Meier photographic film, sound evidence, the metal samples, and from a special effects point of view, etc. And basically what the people are saying is, this is either there's a master at work here, or this stuff's all real. So here's a kind of an overview of the physical evidence. And at the very end, I mentioned that Meier has been the target of 21 documented attempts in his life to date, most of which have happened since 1975. One of them happened in India in the 60s. And he says it doesn't bother him anymore. It was a bullet in his arm. And I said, why not? He says, because that was the part of the arm he lost. So he has a cute sense of humor. All right, let's talk about a higher standard of proof. I like to refer to it that way. Dozens of specific discoveries and events published by Meier before occurrence. Actually, it's dozens and dozens and dozens. I only have a certain, 6 or 7, 8 dozen in English, but in Switzerland they have books in German where they've printed all his reports out, the dated reports and everything, and then they've got the newspaper articles just peppered all the way through, showing years later this was confirmed. You can understand what I'm talking about. The independent corroboration of the accuracy of the information and a really conspicuous absence of erroneous information. You'd expect that if it's a hoax, or if he's really a lucky guesser, you're going to have a commensurate volume, at least, of stuff that's just dopey and wrong. There's a numbering system that was put in place in 1975. Said to Meier, January 28th, 1975, we want you to number every contact that we have with you from this point on, because you're going to publish and disseminate them. He said, okay. They said, we want you to number every sentence we speak to you. I said, what do I have to do that for? Because years and decades from now, people are going to accuse you of being a hoaxer and a fraud. They're going to say that you've gone back and inserted things and rewritten your transcripts to make it look like you had received this information before. However, if when we speak you have a number 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, up to 100, some of the conversations have 300 or more sentences in them, they will be sequential, they'll be in order, they will have been disseminated in German and some of these contacts in English, and any and everybody that's going to have a copy of it's going to have the same stuff in it. And you're not going to be able to go back, or that won't be proven to be true. So that's what he did, and that helped to render these documents unalterable. And we'll see what it's led to. Now, we'll have some information here that may contradict other information. I don't know if we can say for sure who's right, who's wrong, but this is front cover of one of the books in the series of 4 that was put out by Wendell Stevens when he was getting the early translations, English translations, in publication as quickly as he could. Here's his copyright page where he lists back to 1979. He'd started to obtain the contact reports, I believe, in 78. Here is how the early transcripts, this isn't from the page of the book, this is the early transcripts that were floating around the world starting in the 70s and 80s that were in English and that were kind of a little difficult because they were translated by somebody whose English wasn't great. So the verbs oftentimes ended up at the ends of sentences and were, Germanic in structure. But you notice I said the numbering system, you can see it there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And Meier just uses a little cross or X mark for his because he doesn't have to number his statements. During this period of time, during these 2 contacts, Meier got very distinctly specific information about Venus. that was not corroborated until a year later when the probe arrived. Temperatures, wind speeds, etc., everything you can see there. This is a terrain map, a 3D computer representation. This terrain map was being, one of them anyhow, was being done about 5 years later at the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, and Wendell Stevens came in there and he was looking at it and he said he was amazed that the information that Meier had given corresponded to how they had constructed the map. Now, this is where Meier is, I'm going to say once again, relaying information, especially about some of the effects of the A-bombs. Remember, we spoke about a letter, and we showed you 14 years of age, that he'd written about the ozone damage and other things. In there was also the, I didn't put everything in, but the effect of the bombs that had been dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in addition to them being genocidal and dreadful, the environmental and planetary effects were gone into a little bit. Here, they were officially repeating information for him to publish. And this is, I was reading this in 1986 when I first got the transcripts. Then in 1988, I opened a newspaper, this one over here, and I saw this new discovery about A-bomb testing tied to ozone depletion. And I wondered why it did not seem like a new discovery. And I reached under the bed for those transcripts that I'd stuck under there 2 years before, and I compared, and the percentage, they have a 5% here in this article. Meier was told 6.38. Pretty darn close. Meier had been given information about the ozone the ultraviolet penetrating through the ozone holes caused by these atomic explosions, and how it would kill off microorganisms and lead to genetic mutations and damage to the food chain. And here was, a couple of years later, another article that popped out at me in the newspaper. Now I started to get interested in the Meier case from a whole new angle. This is kind of important for these times, as I think anybody having trouble reading that? Good, because I don't want to read to you like you're in school or anything. It's just, this is about the problems that we are creating by extracting petroleum and natural gas from the planet, and how we're setting ourselves up for these megaquakes and increased activity from volcanoes, and how that was going to lead to, is according to them, going to lead to collapses of whole land masses too. So here was an article that I found in 1990 where this professor from Stanford, Paul Siegel, says, hey, there's a connection between taking the oil out of the ground and earthquakes. What do you know about that? Now, in all fairness, somebody said to me they found on the internet, I didn't at the time, they said they found some mention that scientists did have those concerns perhaps in the 50s. I said, well, that's great. They should not allow this to proceed that way. But more importantly, Meier didn't have access to it. He didn't have the internet. And when people say, well, Meier coulda, woulda, shoulda found this information here or there, they forget that this guy's growing up in a little Swiss village, and then he's traipsing around the Mideast, Asia, Africa. He's not in libraries, and there is no internet. So here is our real myth about oil. Some people say, well, we're not really out of it yet, and there's more we can extract. Folks, we've already lit the fuse in ourselves with this stuff. Cause and effect. So it leads to this type of thing, and it leads to that type of thing, and it's probably preaching to the choir to talk about it. Now here, I know we had some contrary information just before, and I just presented this information as I have it. Meier claimed, he published in 1978 his conversation while he's being shown Jupiter and its rings up close and personal. He had been told prior to that about a moon of fire and a moon of ice, and I learned that directly from Lee and Britt Elders, that he had told him about that even before this was published. So they did say that Io was the most volcanically active body in the solar system, and that Europa was encrusted in ice. Now, I called Dr. Joseph Viverka from Cornell and ran that by him. Told him I had a Swiss friend who had published the information before the probe got to Venus, and he said, really? Send it to me, and I did. And this was his one statement before he hung up on me. He didn't want to answer any other questions. Meier, in addition to saying that Io was the most volcanically active body, gave the composition of the ejecta as being sulfur ions and dust particles, propelled out at speeds of 2,500 kilometers per hour up to about 180 kilometers, and that a lot of it was taken up, he said, into the rings of Jupiter. Some scientists have said that they discovered that this matter is going into the torus, not the rings. But Meier said that he noticed that Io was very smooth, uncharacteristically for a body that is allegedly volcanically active, and he was told that a lot of the material that did not get taken out of the atmosphere was simply falling back down, and that there was so much of this going on that this was creating the smooth surface. Again, make up your own mind. But he published it 5 months before the probe got there. And NASA did consider that aspect to be their most important discovery of that mission. Now, here's another example. This is very diverse. We're going to look at the diversity of information Meier's told about extensive magma chambers underneath Vesuvius, that when it goes, it's going to take out not only a good part of Naples, but a good part of Rome and the Vatican. Nobody was shedding a tear about that idea when he was talking about it, but I don't know what your sentiments may be. They recently discovered 400 square kilometers underneath our magma chambers in the Pleiar and said, they haven't found it all. Trust me, it goes all the way. So that's about 22 years beforehand, and indeed it was published prior. Meier was told that Saturn actually has 29 moons. When he was told that, he thought there were 12 that had been discovered. He was corrected and told there were actually 16 had been discovered at this time. But he was told by this ET that our scientists were going to misidentify a number of moons and actually give Saturn too many moons because they would misidentify some of the asteroids, the Adonis asteroids, as moons, when technically in their technology there were only 29 moons. I think the scientists finally hit 29 of them in November there, and then since then I think they've said they think there's 4 more or what have you. He also published this interesting article, interesting thing that he was told by the Pleiaren about a sun system with 3 suns and 16 planets. Actually, I didn't put it here, but he was told that this was an inhabited system where the peoples in this system had overpopulated to such a high degree, and their system was dying, and they had to be relocated, and they were actually getting help. In this cosmology, the Meier context, the Pleiaren people claim that they know of 41 million human life forms in the universe as they've encountered it so far. 343 different skin colorations of all heights and sizes and varieties. Well, the 3 sun, 16 planetary idea was corroborated just in July by Dr. Konecki. Not that particular system probably, but that it could happen. Meier this one they said, don't publish this for a while, let this, come out, keep your mouth shut, because this guy was strangled, and he said you have enough trouble with different parties, with religious, strong opinions. Some of those people have been the ones that have tried to kill him. So indeed, in 2005, they came forward and said it was not a suicide. Odd little things like this about being told that spinach genes will be transferred into pigs in Japan in an experiment in 2002. And indeed, they did in 2002 do that experiment 15 years later. Now, I know a lot of that might seem very weird when you read this stuff, but it's the ones where we've got these dates are in the documents that are dated, they were witnessed, and it gets weirder. This is about the trans-Pluto and Uni, or what we are calling Sedna and Xena, or whatever, the 2 planets beyond Pluto. They're out there. And of course, he was writing about it sometime before. So we get into prophecies and predictions, a little bit different. And prophecies are the negative events that are still alterable. And this is the thing to keep your eye on, this idea of alterability. Because, folks, this is the oars in our boat. Predictions are things that are set in stone. They're things that have to occur based on cosmic law. For instance, the orbit of a given body, a planetary body or a comet or what have you. Or prophecies that have gone past the point of no return, because in the cases where human beings coulda, woulda, shoulda done something about it, we didn't in time. With that in mind, This is where people said, well, what did he have anything to say about the floods and the tsunamis? I said, well, you know, as far back as 76 and 77, indeed even earlier in 51, but these we've got dated and published and they're in transcript form, specific information about the damage we're doing to the environment, which is going to lead to this phenomenon. Of course the planet has earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions and all, but the intensity and frequency is out of balance. So here are some of the transcripts, and I read this, well, I had this in 86, but back from 76. Entire nations will sink into the waters, blah, blah. So they have been trying to warn us. Some people might think that it's been ineffective or impotent even, but there's been an awful lot of opposition to the Billy Meier contacts. Now you might know why. It's not just about UFOs. He was told that this tsunami's actual death toll is over 359,700 people, and that the La Palma volcano is a prediction. It is going to erupt. They said we cannot, meaning we will not tell you when, but the United States government is delinquent, and it's a criminal offense that they are not preparing and warning their citizenry and helping to prepare pathways for escape for when that occurs. Now this was, we just got our first or of the two hurricanes that have struck the states, and you can see what's happening, how the preparation has been. They've said that that will take 20 million lives if we don't prepare over there. The wave will hit the shores of Portugal, Spain, and France as well. Scientists know about this. You can do a search for La Palma on the internet, and you've got a BBC article from 2000 that is going to tell you this is a real high probability. This would be the effect. And they said it's not a high probability, it's a certainty. Now, it could happen many years, even decades from now. But why aren't they preparing? Now, in the Jupiter document, where we talk about Io and Europa and all that, Wendell Stevens wanted to bring that back with him to the States, and he was sitting with Meier in Switzerland when the probe arrived, and Meier had already shown him this information. It was published. So he asks Meier for this, and Meier turns to this woman, Ava, who's his girlfriend there, and he says, run a copy off, I guess a mimeograph machine or something. The phone rings, and Billy goes out of the room. Ava goes, and she runs off the document, gives it to Wendell, says, here. Billy comes out, Wendell says, thanks, bye. He goes home, he brings out the document, and he realizes, because he knows the drill with Meier, that if a thing is a prediction with certainty, you're not supposed to mention it or publish certain things, because people will want to interfere with that pendulum. And predictions, you don't try to interfere with the prediction. You try to change the causes prior to its as best you can. Well, this had a number of specific predictions, so he showed this information to these two gentlemen. They witnessed it, and they put it away until after all of these events happened. Now, the Jonestown Massacre had occurred by the time that Wendell had this document, but the other items here had not occurred. And they watched them happen and, you know, checked them off, and when all of them were done, then Wendell published it. 1987, the Enoch prophecies, or Henoch prophecies, which was listed as part of the coming attractions, or coming destructions here, I guess. So in there, indeed, the destruction of the World Trade Center by terrorists is mentioned, and the fact that the U.S. would go on the march into other countries around the world, and also that Islamic terrorist attacks would take place and spread across Europe. We'll get into some of the specifics of this. Indeed, also the in this contact, 251, these are the things, some of the things that are specified there and that were corroborated. The last one on this list here, the danger of a nuclear plant accident. For those of you that have the book, and yet they fly, and still they fly, you can read this the way Meier worded it. He said, there is the danger of an accident at the nuclear power plant near Lyon, France. This is preventable if people will pay attention and catch it in time. Well, there were 436 nuclear power plants on the planet when Meier wrote that. And he picked that one on August 12th of 2003, of scrolling around the internet, and up pops this article about the nuclear power plant at Lyon, France. They shut it down. They vented the water. It was good. Okay. Also, of course, he had written about human-animal hybrids. This type of thing was corroborated in 2005. I think University of Minnesota had worked on such things for a couple of years. Here, when he foretells the future of animal food production, meaning growing meat in laboratories, culturing meat, he said this is the answer. The Playaran had told him, they said, you know, the vegetarians, as well-meaning as they are on your planet, they actually inhibit your progress because they are such virulent opponents of genetic experimenting and manipulation, modification, engineering from the get-go categorically, that they don't understand that will liberate your world from the need to kill animals for food. This substance, the meats and the proteins and the acids and everything else inherent in that, is a perfect substance for human nutrition, based as it is on the evolutionary, stream of humanity. But if you will allow and guide and guard this genetic engineering process that you are in and you will never turn back from, because it is the way of your technological evolution, and it will lead to a lot of great things and a lot of horrors, but that's life. They said that will get you past. Of course, here we now, in this magazine quoted here, they want to do experiments to grow fish, flesh in laboratory, in vitro. Here we go. From the Enoch prophecies, and I've put a bunch of this stuff up there. You can read these in the book. I've got some of this for free online, so you just get it and do with it what you will. But this is how they explained to Meier about how my beloved country is antagonizing people, around the world, and what will come of it. And as they said, the destruction of the World Trade Center by terrorists will only be the beginning. For those in the back, if you're not seeing it clearly, they're talking about not only that, but Earth and nature are going to rebel against the treatment of humanity. And here is the compelling one, and I have more information this one maybe touch on, about the enormous firestorms and gigantic hurricanes that they say are going to sweep over the USA. And that this type of devastation is unprecedented, even though there have been civilizations on the planet before that have warred and have had nuclear exchanges and all sorts of things that we, for the most part, is unofficial and nonsensical to our scientists. They say that what comes to my country because of its policies is going to be unprecedented unless we might change our ways. And of course, they include the rest of the Western industrialized capitalist countries who are living with this domination mentality and aligning themselves with these kind of policies, and realizing here that eventually the tide turns. And I think that it had been mentioned before by somebody here. The Meier case at its core is not about UFOs and ETs. And I think you'll see more and more of what it's really about as we look at this. And they say that stubborn folks that we're going to keep on going despite the enormous hits that we're going to take until these prophecies get fulfilled, unless enough people are waking up. And we've got some wake-up measures here. This is 87. Was that too quick? Pardon me. But not even all the terrible happenings will hinder the USA. Can you get it? You can see it there? Okay. Just give me a yay when you okay. Yet the misery on earth will continue as two terrible civil wars will break out in America, whereby one will follow the other. Afterwards, the United States of America will break apart and deadly hostility will prevail among her, which then leads to the division into 5 different territories, and it cannot be prevented that sectarian fanatics will play a dictatorial role. I should add that as far back as the 50s, Meier was being told about the coming danger to the world from various fundamentalist sects, and that the religious fundamentalists of all stripes would lead the world possibly into a third world war. Now, I put this part up, which is in there, because you might see the relevancy. Can you read it from back there? Okay. Basically, they've said if we allow all of this to go forward, there's no place that is not affected. Some places later than others, but basically, you got it? Okay. This was from a conversation in 1989 where Meier is commenting back to Quetzal about the whole prophecy that was given in 87 about the destruction of the World Trade Center. He says, monstrous, really monstrous. It would also be just as monstrous if, when, the World Trade Center would be destroyed by terrorists with captured commercial airplanes, through which thousands of people would die. That Bush Jr. and various of his criminal trusted ones knew that then, however, undertook nothing against it. A criminal act that gains Bush the upper hand and he can let loose against Islam, naturally always under the cloak or veil that they want to free the USA and the world from terrorism. It would not be discussed that it would be the Bushes who would bring the greatest terror over the world, at least for the next 15 years. 21 attempts on Meier's life. Get the idea? Bush Jr. and Blair would plot with one another against Iraq, whereby Bush will avenge his father's defeat in the Gulf War through a new war against Saddam Hussein, as already would be resolved by both Bushes and their closest hangers-on, to which also the highest position of the CIA belong, if the plotted war in 1991 would not bring the desired results, Meier was told in 89. I did a little search on the internet. Over 200 unprovoked attacks, invasions, bombings, destabilizations, overthrows, etc. by the U.S. against other countries, none of which had attacked us. None. Nobody. I looked through the list. Guatemala hadn't invaded Los Angeles last time I looked. So here it is, why we're in trouble, especially where we live. You send it out, 1, 2, 3, it reaches number 5, and it starts to come back. It was expressed biblically in this way. I think probably if, in terms of religion, the two best, most pertinent things I've come across, and maybe other great things, but if we were teaching these two ideas, what should we expect? If we are to avoid a third world war, the U.S. has to withdraw from all the countries, not just Iraq. It has to stop the world policing. It's got to stop attacking and aggressing against everybody who, Iran and Syria, Venezuela, whoever they've got on the charts next. And the war on terrorism, they said simply, it cannot be won by any other means. There's no military means of defeating a war on terrorism. What are you going to do, bomb your own country if you find a terrorist walking the streets? You have to bring your people back, get your house in order, become the example. And then there are other means that they talk about. It's on the site, it's on a DVD, you can look at all that. But we're just spelling out what comes if we don't. And this, they've said, we guarantee you, if you don't do this, you get that. This is what's in the prophecies. Remember, we have oars. We can change the course. We did have an offer from these... Was that too fast? I'm sorry. Let's go back. There we go. It's pretty grim. Make sure we get it all. I can get through that one, Okay? Bad enough? Okay. There was an approach to the U.S. government, to the Carter administration in 1979. The stipulation was that Meier would be the representative for the Playaran people. The U.S. refused the terms of the contact. And I have to say, I've read the letter, and unfortunately there were things in there that any sensible person would realize that the U.S. would not go along with. I don't want to go into it in depth. It's just too bad. It just shows that wherever human beings are involved, and these are human beings, these ETs, things can and will get screwed up, and they have made mistakes. These are not perfect beings. They're trying to help, but they didn't understand us for a while. I even talked to Billy about it last year. I said, I have a funny feeling these Playaran people really didn't understand us all that well. He said, the truth of the matter is they didn't. See, they have the ability, they can look into us, but they can't do it in terms of the principle of non-interference, non-invasion. of free will. So they took what they got. They'd see things, they took things pretty much on face, for the most part. They knew other things. But what Billy was saying was, when they discovered the depth of our lying to ourselves and each other and anybody else, they had to reframe their understanding. To them, it's illogical. When you lie, you don't change something, you just delay and compound the consequences and the negative event. So it's against your self-interest to lie. If you're going to say that we're going to go from this point in space to that one, you don't want somebody in the ship who's saying, oh yeah, I know how to do that, and doesn't. So they didn't know how to approach here, and they kind of blew it. But we blew it too. So the choice is really simple in terms of what they're talking about. We can have this, which I think we all prefer, or, of course, we can have this. I don't want to dwell on that one too much. According to the play Iron, here's some stuff that always, whenever I present to alternative, audiences, this is where people start throwing oranges and stuff. There's no ascension, there's no fourth dimension to go into, and no light bodies. Not yet. Ascension is basically a religious concept reworked from Christianity, which misunderstood because of the misinterpretation of the actions of a particular individual being taken up in a ship. They're saying he's ascending. Light bodies, a few billion years, tens of millions of incarnations from now, it might work out. There's no gods, angels, or ascended masters. It contradicts the laws of reincarnation. Channeled information, primarily unreliable. Maybe there's exceptions. Most UFO sightings are terrestrial craft. Not all. Real contactees are few and far between. Well, we did see at least evidence of 2 in this case beside Meier. Okay, Father Zimmerman and Fobal Cheng. There are 3 other races that they say do visit the planet, one of whom has a base on the planet. Others have come and gone over time. There's no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, our history goes back millions of years with the comings and goings of ETs. Most abductions, however, and mutilations are from secret services on our own planet, governments like, oh, I don't know, take a guess. They also say that the use of mind-altering drugs retards our spiritual growth, contrary to our subjective experiences and beliefs, and that we must indeed in time be prepared to face a hostile ET race, even more barbaric than we are, but better equipped. Now here's something darn well cheerful. What they're saying is that in this millennium, we are going to eventually see the emergence of the true mothers of the millennium, the women who stand in their femininity and strength, who aren't trying to become, as we have many women in America, wanting to have heart attacks and wear pantsuits all the time in pursuit of that. I don't mean there's anything wrong with pantsuits. You know the idea I'm trying to paint here, right? So, the emergence of women who stand in their strength and their femininity, who will tame this element of unreasonable violence in men and bring peace, real true peace. I think that by that time, the men will be ready to give it up. So we're encouraged to leave behind what we're in now, what we've been in for a long, long time, the age of belief. Rational religions, cults, sects, etc. And to enter the age of knowledge, truth, factual, go there. So we talk about the age of knowledge. What does that mean according to the Plejaren? They talk about the creation and its laws. We'll talk a little more about that in a second. The high council, the human spirit, all of these things that are written here. I put all this on the DVD because I know I don't have time to do this whole section now. I wanted to cover some other things. But one thing we should mention about the creation, they say this universe that we live in is an egg-shaped entity, if you will, construct, with 7 belts. But that basically it's a double helix of energy that weaves and feeds itself. Does that sound familiar? Did we have somebody talking about the double helix just a while ago? They say that this creation that we're in, this universe, this is the source of all that exists in this universe, and just the human spirit is a part piece, a hologram of this creational energy. And then they talk about the purpose of evolution, and again, that's covered much more in the DVD. But this whole thing, they also mention that there's a vast sea of electron energy in space. All matter contains it. and that this we should be turning to deriving our energy and learning how to access our energy from this electron energy. And I think that we had somebody speaking a little bit about the electric universe not too long ago. We talked in the very beginning about the Talmud of Emmanuel, this document that was co-discovered. They were actually 4 scrolls that were found by Meier and Isa Rashid in an abandoned tomb on the outskirts of Jerusalem in 1963, that they found an opening, dug their way in. There were stones on the floor. They dug around, lifted the stones out, and there were 4 scrolls wrapped in animal skins that had been sealed in a resin. When they opened the first one up to look at it, perfectly preserved for the most part, written in Aramaic, and turned over to Isa Rashid because coincidentally this man, a former Greek Orthodox priest, just happened to read Aramaic. Another big coincidence. Now they speak about Emmanuel in the Talmud of Emmanuel and not Jesus, a man who was never called Jesus in his lifetime. And the prophecies section in that book will curl your hair. It doesn't curl mine because I don't have any. This is Isa Rashid, or was Isa Rashid. In 70, Meier received the first translation, 36 chapters. It took 7 years for Rashid in his spare time to go through it. He and his family had to flee to Lebanon when other parties found out that he had this document. He secured the documents in the walls of the building in a refugee camp in Lebanon, and then the Israelis came in shortly after he arrived there and devastated the entire village. The Talmud, untranslated parts and all, were destroyed. He and his family fled with their lives. They were assassinated in Baghdad by the Mossad, apparently. And in the Talmud, Judas is the writer, the scribe, and not the betrayer. A man of similar name, a son of a Pharisee, Judah Iharioth, was the actual betrayer. Adam's father was Semyaza. I think some of you know from the Bible there was a Semyaza mentioned. No? Yeah? Okay. He was what was called an El, and the Els were the gods, early gods on the planet. And the God of the Old Testament was an extraterrestrial leader. There were a number of gods involved at that time. The father of Emmanuel was a Pleiadian named Gabriel. And Emmanuel was the 5th prophet in a specific lineage of a reincarnating spirit that the Pleiadian had worked with starting at least 13,500 years ago. It is said here that Emmanuel survived the crucifixion because this was an event that they knew was coming. Joseph of Arimathea had brought healers in from India. There was a back entrance to this tomb. You're not dealing with a lot of sophisticated people at the time. I mean, the rest of the people there. After this crucifixion, when you get a chance to read the Talmud, which will be hopefully republished very soon, you will be able to read a lot of these details. And you can, Jim Deerdorf, who originally got involved for this reason, has found that the Talmud of Emmanuel resolved over 300 inconsistencies in the book of Matthew, about 100 of which weren't even considered at the time at which the Talmud was either discovered or translated. In other words, scholars who have found troubling inconsistencies in the book of Matthew found that those were resolved by the actual texts in the Talmud of Emmanuel. And that appears to be one of the bases upon which Deerdorf says this is the real document upon which the book of Matthew was written and based. And Emmanuel did not marry Mary Magdalene. She was, as Meier said, she was a girlfriend of his. I think the emphasis was friend. And he married an Indian woman. He dies somewhere between 105, 120 years of age and is buried near Srinagar. Mary, his mother, who also fled with him and his brother and a couple of the people after the crucifixion, also has a tomb there. You know there's some books on this. Meier isn't the only source for this information. And a son of his named Joseph went to Jerusalem about 70 years after the crucifixion and sequestered the scrolls in the tomb. So there was nobody even around any longer who was alive at the time of the original event, or certainly able to intercede. In this Talmud, these are some of the things that are foretold. Emmanuel curses out the scribes and the Pharisees of the time. We're all familiar with a lot of the generation of vipers, which he used quite liberally. And he told those people at the time that because they had corrupted the true spiritual teachings of the creation and had turned their people into followers of an illogical cult, and they had also stolen lands and persecuted and destroyed in their own right, that in 500 years a man would come who would be called Muhammad, and his followers would also form eventually an illogical cult, whereby his own teachings, Muhammad's teachings, would be corrupted, but that these followers would give the descendants of the Israelites, Hebrews of the time, no peace. Of course, we'll get to the contingency there, but he also wrote in there about atomic, biological, and missiles. When he said in the coming times, in distant millennium, people will fight with each other by hurling metallic projectiles filled with the very cornerstones of life and foul air. They will travel on the land, water, and air in vehicles for war made of metal. The skies will darken because of the greed of men for the very oil of the earth. Now, this was published before the Kuwaiti oil fires, by the way. And he speaks about a coming destruction of Jerusalem that sounds like a nuclear destruction. And he says, should the distant descendants of the Israelites, the Hebrews, not make a true and just peace with the descendants of the rightful owners of the land, they will know no peace until the end of time, and that their people will be destroyed. And speaks then of the danger of a third world war. And that, again, at one time, the truth of the eternal teachings will be known during this coming time, 2 millennium hence from him. This is these are the carvings in the base of the tomb in Srinagar of the feet of the man who is buried in that tomb, or they believe he's buried there, and they have nail marks in the center, and the legend reads something like, "Herein lies a man who was crucified in his own land, but who came to teach us." So what's the purpose of the Meier contacts? And this is what it is, as far as I can tell: to help us assure our future survival and to awaken us to spiritual reality and eternal truths of the creation, to lay the foundation for the next 700 years of human development and spiritual growth. How we get there? Do we go kicking and screaming, or do we dance more gracefully through this whole thing? That's up to us. So in order to become what they call true human beings, we've got to give up all of this turning over of our power to the outside forces of our world, whether they're religious, political, cultic, new age, anything. We have got to take back our own authority, responsibility for our lives, and we've got to think. The power of thought, they say, is more powerful than everything except the human spirit. And if and when we decide that we want to think responsibly and learn how to put our thoughts out, they call it neutral positive thinking. I have more about this on the DVD, but this is just to get this in your mind here. That's how we create that path. It's not through strictly positive thinking where we deny a situation and say, oh, everything's fine, I'm wonderful. We have to recognize where we are in order to be able to choose a preferred direction, and to recognize also how we navigate based on knowledge and wisdom. So there are specific means of dealing with all of this terrorism and war. These people claim that it took them a long, long time in their worlds to settle down. They come from a lineage of just hellraisers, people who destroyed whole planetary systems because they attained great power, they attained great spiritual knowledge, but didn't always use it for the good. They paid their prices many times over. They'd like to see us avoid this level of destruction. And now this is a real key thing, and if we can get this straight, and that is at least look at this information and do with it what you will, we have been using, according to them, the absolute worst symbol for peace. And they say it's one of the reasons why 30 years later we don't have peace from our peace movement. We have something which is, we've taken the tree of life and turned it upside down and made it into the sword, it's a symbol of death in old cultures. It's the Nero cross. They said that the original cross of the crucifixion was shaped as a Y, not the 90 degree. And when they crucified Peter, they turned it upside down to direct his life energy into the ground. It was like an inhumane, brutal thing. This whole symbol, they said the correct peace symbol, if you will, if you look in the center of this is a tree of life. This is an upward energy. This is the entire symbol. Meier was taught 1.2 million symbols of all sorts, so that when he would transcribe from the telepathic transmission, the conversations he had, with one hand in German on his keyboard, he was translating the symbols into the words and concepts simultaneously while he received them. That's the whole other thing. But this is what they say is the symbol, and this would be the colors that they apply to it. So, in this little chicken scratch here in the middle of nowhere, if you want to do your piece for it, so to speak, pun intended, you might want to contemplate that idea. And if you've got anything with a peace symbol, turn it around. Look at the two of them. See if you have a feeling. There's a guy named Dr. John Diamond, and he works with symbols and muscle testing and all that. He talks about something called the Madonna gesture. I don't know if you know what that is. It's basically like this. Tree of life, the upward inviting energy. This is a mother opens her arms to a child, or a father can do it too. But this is the invitation. This is the upward, ever ascending energy that we are being invited to refocus and redirect. And symbols are powerful things. So see how that strikes you. So it's up to us. Only we can, in effect, rewrite our future history. If those prophecies are our future history, or a possible, probable outcome of the path we're on, we've got to rewrite it, right? Yes, indeed, the requisite commercial. I've got a DVD where all the stuff about the core principles, the spiritual teachings, is gone into in greater depth, what the Pleiaren have to say about how to do this and how to do that. And most everything you've seen here, except the early years of Meier's life. I didn't have that there. And as it says, that's here, that's there. I have a website where these books, and I would encourage you to look at the website that I've got with the free information. If you're moved to, the books are great. There's just so much stuff. The previous book that I just showed you, Guido Musbrugger, Austrian school principal and teacher who was a skeptic and went to visit Meier. He's been hanging out there for 30 years. He's photographed the ships. He's seen the ETs himself. And he has... he's a brilliant mind. He writes about time travel and stuff. Meier has given him a lot of information on lots of things, how the Pleiaren live, their society, their laws, their agriculture, just lots of stuff. So it's a cool book. And this is the latest book that simply has got lots of the witness reports. When you find out what these people are saying and have seen, other photographs, digitized, the stuff you've seen here, other stuff. So that's my big deal. Here it is with my website. And I thank you for your attention.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. You had a question? We can do that a little bit. Right. The question had to do with Marcel Vogel, the IBM scientist who examined the metal samples that Meier was given. And Meier still has some. People think he doesn't have any more. He still has them. He just doesn't think it's really worth it right now to start doing it all over. But the story is that after they had done the examination and Marcel Vogel put the samples in the safe there at IBM, the next day when he went there and opened the safe, they were gone. And so the story goes that the Pleiaren took them back. Some people think that Marcel Vogel actually took them and turned them over to IBM, who later on came out with superconductors. And there's theories about it. Don't know what the truth may be. Anybody else have any other questions on this thing? Oh yeah, The question was the photo of the craft that had all the globes around it. I think that's around 1980 because that's when that film was from too, and that's a real enigmatic thing. But they told him that was capable, that was space and time traveling capable. They took those out of use around the planet because it was of soft metal and it was corroding in our atmosphere. Yeah, shall I tell you why? The question or the statement had to do with Shirley MacLaine's book, Out on the Limb, and the film and a drawing of that craft. Shirley MacLaine spent a number of weeks with Billy, and this has been a source of a bit of discomfort for Meier. She took copious notes about of her conversations with Billy, and came back and suddenly wrote these books about her experiences. And there was a lot of forehead slapping going on in Switzerland about that. They felt that Shirley had taken an unethical step. I'm simply reporting that. I don't have any personal knowledge of it, but it wouldn't be surprising that she saw that, took some drawings of it, and it appeared there. Let's see if there's anybody that hasn't been and that wants to. Yeah. Let me put it this way. The question had to do with how much of the Islamic terrorism was fabricated by secret organizations of different countries. Meier was told at least as far back as 81 that's when they first told him about Islam. There would be fanaticism coming from it. In 53, he was told about the fundamentalist, terrorism that would arise from the major religions. But they, in the case, say that in order for this world to have peace, the secret intelligence and secret service agencies and all this have to be disbanded. Now, this is an optimistic thing to say, but they're saying that this whole thing of our secret societies, and not that they subscribe to all of what we think are the powerful secret societies, but those that exist, and the secret government operations have to be done away with. The fact that we continue this aggression against each other. Now, I'm going to just branch a little bit and say that what's talked about more on the DVD is the genetic manipulations done to our very distant forefathers 22 million years ago that we all on this planet carry, which are two factors: the restricted lifespan to about 100 years and the propensity for violence that is increased. That's why when they say for us to become true human beings, they're talking about beings that have a different balance. Our aggression that we take for granted, open the newspaper, turn on the TV, is an aberration. And it's an aberration because our distant forefathers were bred to be a warrior race to protect another race. That's in this material. I'm sorry to just leave you with that little blurb. It sounds weird, but do you notice I showed you, this was about dire predictions for the world. Is Australia mentioned in particular? Not, in what I've seen, not too much, but if you remember one of the pages that we had up there about the Enoch prophecies, it talks about even the equatorial regions will eventually get these disturbances. And when you read the whole prophecy, they talk about why and how. Because of the nuclear explosions, the spin of the planet is thrown off. It changes the orbit around the sun. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that is in motion. They claim that they stopped two things in particular years ago. One was a test of a missile that had either bromine substances or something to destroy put holes in the ozone from one nation, they don't mention who, that they were targeting some other nation. They thought that if they could blow holes in the ozone, they could kill those people by getting all the UV to go through. And as the Baron told Meier, what these fools didn't realize is the ozone holes move, and they would ultimately be destroying everybody on the planet. The other thing was there was some nation that was going to test a chain reaction bomb. They said this bomb, had it been detonated, it would have only taken 8 minutes for the entire atmosphere of the planet to be incinerated and incinerate the planet. It would have been a crisp. And they said that was prevented. And they have certain means of preventing some things, which also include removing memories. In the book, for instance, in the book, And Yet They Fly, and Still They Fly, there's photographs. There's a couple of photographs where Meier was told to take a bunch of people with him and to go photograph a little area of land where there was a tree. And they did, and they said, come back in an hour, whatever. They came back, and they took photographs, and they looked. There was no trace that a tree had ever grown there. Not like a hole had been dug up. There was simply no trace that a tree had ever existed. The series of shots where the ship goes around the tree, that tree is no longer on that land. The farmer that owns that land doesn't remember a tree ever being there. There was an instance, I'm just going to shotgun stuff at you. There were some people, workers, who used to come to, passing Meier's place to work in some place in the neighborhood, in the area, and they were very anti-Billy. They were always deriding him. They would always make negative comments. Not that Billy heard him, but the ETs who maintained a ship there were monitoring this and always hearing this really nasty stuff. And one of them kind of did a little out-of-line thing and allowed his ship to be seen by these guys. There were 3 or 4 of them. They all freaked out pretty well. Now, a couple of them, they freaked out, but they were able to handle it. One guy went out of his mind and had to be institutionalized. One other guy, a military guy, killed himself, a guy at a military base near there, because he had been one of the skeptics and he saw the ship. I don't know if it was intended or not. This stuff was all documented. So what the Playaran did with the guy who ended up in the institution, because they realized it was their responsibility, that just to prove a point was a very stupid thing to do. They're human beings. They went back and erased his memory of that event. And the brothers came to see Meier. And they said, listen, we're sorry, we've been criticizing, blah, blah, blah. And he was told, they were told by Meier, they said, your brother's going to be okay, but you must never talk to him about it. Don't try to remind him of it. He will not remember that it happened. He cannot handle that reality. So that was taken from his consciousness and just let it be like that. Now, these are things that I put in the speculative category because I can't prove it, right? But there's... What talk? Oh, I'm sorry. It's working already. There's a lot of really unusual things in here, stuff that goes into the gosh knows who could ever prove it realm. I'm more concerned with look, when we saw those Enoch prophecies, when I got those, I picked those up in Switzerland in 2002, had them translated. I read those and I said, why do I even want to know about this? That's grim. And then as quickly as I asked myself, I got the answer. It's because they've given us 50 years worth of prophetically accurate information in the most diverse array of topics and areas, and it's been spot on. And they're saying, if you have the wit, you're going to recognize that we've given you a foundation that authenticates our credibility, should be intact with you sufficiently that you would look at this and see that it's a prophecy and want to do everything in your power to not allow it to come to pass. This is now, we've shown you this is so. And when you look at some of the things that I listed there corroborated, I have on the website for free, you'll see specific volcanic eruptions, earthquakes. They'll tell them the dates and the places and how many people are involved. They did a lot of that. Now, not every time. They sometimes will give an overview. But basically what they're saying is, look, you folks are praying to all sorts of, for help from above. And you're looking at all sorts of sources for prophecy. We're going to give you the most impeccably accurate source you've ever seen. Your prayers have been answered. Somebody wants to help you, but you got to do the work. We're done. We've done our bit. And whether it was a good bit or not, and whether it could have been done better, and I think it could have in many ways, it's up to us. So hey, why don't we get enthusiastic about waking up? That would be the thing. So, thank you.
Ain't no one hear you, Wolfman. This is the kind of shit you said you went to goddamn school for or some bullshit taking classes to learn how to do this crap? At this point, Wolfman, I don't even know if you know how to operate a goddamn cell phone properly. Take it back, Wolfman. This might be your best show ever, where you're not fucking saying shit. It's a goddamn embarrassment what you're doing here, Wolfman. Come with a plan. At least stay fucking conscious or whatever the fuck in the same room as you're doing this bullshit. Hey, Wolfman, you know what you get when you cross a werewolf with a cat? You got to get another goddamn cat. Fucking jokes instead of sleeping. Shit.